Welcome to the 2022 NJLIBSGROWBIZ Virtual Summit. My name is Andrea Lewandowski, and I'm the Library Consultant for Small Business Development and Technology at the New Jersey State Library. I'm also being joined today by Steve Vitale, who is the Communications Technology Specialist in the Marketing Department. He will be assisting me with technical aspects of Zoom during the summit. So if you have any questions or need assistance at any time during the program, please use the chat and Q&A options to get in touch with us. The NJLIBSGROWBIZ Summit is an opportunity to focus on the work that libraries do to promote economic development in their communities. While we recognize that business owners and entrepreneurs are library users and can benefit from the information we have in New Jersey libraries, growing these services, making partnerships, and explaining the value of libraries are skills that require extra attention. For many of you across the state, you're doing this work and you're doing it well, but sometimes these skills are out of our comfort zone or they get lost in the myriad demands on our time. So thank you for being here today, and I hope you can learn something that will help you with your work. NJLIBSGROWBIZ as both a group and as an event is a way to learn from each other, the library field, the business community, and other stakeholders. At the end of today's summit, you will learn how to connect through a listserv and monthly meetings. But if you need to drop off at some point, I would like to direct you to the New Jersey State Library's NJLIBSGROWBIZ webpage for that information and more. That is also where the recordings from today will be posted. I can't guarantee they're going to get posted today or this week, but there will be a message going out on the NJSL Direct when that they are there. Hopefully Monday. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be up there by Monday, but stay tuned. So at this time, I would like to introduce our New Jersey State Librarian, Jennifer Nelson, to welcome you to today's summit. Thanks for being here, Jen.
Good morning, Andrea. It's so good to see you. Good morning, everybody. I wish I could see faces, but yes, you can't when you're in this mode. Thank you for being here. This is the first time we're doing this event since I started, and I'm really excited about it. Small business is in my background, and I used to be a small business librarian, so I'm kind of a kid with Andrea here. I want to thank you for taking the time today to join us. I'd like to especially thank our presenters for bringing their expertise and knowledge to such a nice group of people. We really appreciate that. We know that libraries make good things happen for people all the time and all over the place. And my hope is that after today's session, you'll feel inspired to do something maybe a little different, a little bit better, maybe a little bit stronger than you have in the past, and really support our residents in getting to where they want to go through small business and through entrepreneurship. So with that, I will turn it back to Andrea, and I hope that it's a great day today.
Thank you so much, Jen. And once again, thank you for joining us today to explore the role of libraries in supporting small business owners and entrepreneurs in our communities. And thank you to everyone who is saying hello in the chat and where you're from. It is great to see your names and great to see the libraries that you're representing today. So keep that going. The chat is open to everyone, so feel free to share links and other information as we go. And I do like to pull out pertinent information from the chat as a follow-up, especially if you can't save the chat, which I know sometimes can be an issue. So if you do share anything, don't worry about it being lost when this summit is over. I'll make sure that that stuff gets out and shared. So as we move now to our keynote, I just want to reiterate that New Jersey libraries are in the business of changing lives. And I thought very deeply about the theme for this summit, because I do think that that is so important and something that is very well connected to this topic. Every day, libraries empower individuals to learn, invent, create, explore, innovate, and grow. Fostering entrepreneurship is just one piece of this work, and one that I hope you'll be inspired to embrace as an essential community service after hearing from our speakers today, especially our keynote. Samira Cook Gaines serves as Managing Director of Strategic Partnerships for Rising Tide Capital. Samira brings her practitioner experience and public servant insight to cultivate local, national, and international collaborations in major markets and identify potential partners to share the Rising Tide Capital model and build the entrepreneur support program capacity of local organizations. Prior to Rising Tide Capital, Samira served as the Economic Development Manager for Tacoma Park, Maryland, where she guided the growth and development of local community businesses in the only designated opportunity zone in Montgomery County. Samira was also the founding director of the Washington, D.C. Women's Business Center, which supports women entrepreneurs through training, coaching, and mentoring. In honor of her work with small businesses, Samira was selected as a White House Champion for Change in the area of entrepreneurship mentoring under the Obama administration. As an entrepreneur first, Samira is also the president of Purposeful World Strategies, which helps cities and countries identify, incubate, and ignite their entrepreneurs and small business owners by creating structures for inclusive entrepreneurship and small business support. Her women's empowerment and entrepreneurship work have also taken her to numerous countries as a speaker, facilitator, trainer, and consultant for governments, organizations, and universities in Europe, the Middle East, the Pacific Islands, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Thank you so much for joining us today, Samira, and I'm excited for what you have to share, and I'm excited for New Jersey librarians and library staff to get to hear from you as well.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Jen. Thanks for having me, for inviting me into this space for us to share knowledge and learning. And it is really a pleasure for me because I am a Jersey girl just returning home to Jersey. I was in Washington, D.C. for a couple decades and after high school, and here I am back in Jersey, and it's really just an honor to be talking to, you know, my folks, right? My homies, folks from New Jersey. So I want to get started with our conversation around transforming lives, right? So let me share my screen. And from here, I will take you guys just on a really quick discussion around transformation and what it looks like to transform lives through entrepreneurship. I, as Andrea said, am the managing director of strategic partnerships for Rising Tide Capital. And Rising Tide Capital is headquartered in Jersey City, New Jersey. And there are a number of outlets in New Jersey where Rising Tide provides their services all up and down the state, actually. And we are one of the biggest training providers for entrepreneurs in our state. Let's get started talking about our transformation. So transformational partnerships, really the understanding of that transformation comes from the understanding of who our entrepreneurs are and the effect that they have on communities. You really have to develop or already have just a respect, understanding, and, you know, really a value belief around entrepreneurship to understand how the power of entrepreneurship, which you will support and continue to support every day, those are the folks who kind of have a special effect on communities. So I like to say that entrepreneurs do three things. They create, expand, and reclaim community. So entrepreneurs create community. One of the best ways to really give you an analogy of how that works is this coffee shop phenomenon. So entrepreneurs at their laptops, we have all types of words now, right? Digital nomads, all of these words that talk about folks who really just needed to get out of the house, find a really quiet space or non-distracting space to work. They came together around coffee shops. They could meet each other. They could have space to talk. This phenomenon around just meeting in a coffee shop, meeting in a cafe, turned into co-working spaces. Again, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. So if you have a problem and a solution, you have a business opportunity. And entrepreneurs are the ones who creatively solve their own problems and problems for our communities. So here we have entrepreneurs coming together and creating the community that they need. When they didn't see a standard version of business that fit what they needed, they created their own. Another great example is our online lives, right? So we have online influencers. These are people, very creative entrepreneurs, who started talking about whatever topic. It could have been fashion, it could have been hair, it could have been child raising, right? So mommy bloggers, it's the thing, it's a name. Influencers are influencing, it's an actual job description. So online influencers started building their online communities that follow them, ask them, engage with them, ask them questions about what they're using, what they believe is good or bad. And that turned into business opportunities, brand sponsorships. I don't know if we have the ability to raise hands, but in the chat, describe the type of influencers you follow on social media. I will tell you, I follow mommy bloggers, but I love DIY influencers. I love it when they do the little videos. I love the reels. I also love the fails, right? So when they try, it doesn't quite come out right, and then they try again, because that reminds me of who they are. Entrepreneurs who are creative and iterative and work hard to get something out of nothing. So in the chat, if you would, I'd love to know what type of influencers. Lifestyle, ooh, travel. So Jenny, same. The work that I do in my own business is international. So all of the travel bloggers are favorites of mine. Makeup tutorials. My husband, Karen, follows a lot of exercise, like fitness guys. I do too, but I just end up sitting on the couch watching them. So it's a different type of conversation. Love it. Technology, devices, lifestyle makeup, fashion influencers. This is all a community created by entrepreneurs online. Next, entrepreneurs expand community. Now, this is interesting because folks see entrepreneurship, small business development, and small business owners. They think about this easily around workforce development. This is where jobs come from. This is the simple math that we do when we think about whether or not investing in small business programs and entrepreneurship are going to pay off, if they're going to have a return on that investment. Now, workforce, though, goes beyond just jobs. It's also mentoring and apprenticeships. So entrepreneurs are, the first to bring on untested talent, right? On new talent. And as we talk about equity and really thinking through entrepreneurs of color or entrepreneurs who are underserved or women entrepreneurs, this area of mentoring and expanding community in that way is very pivotal for the development, for the economic and social development of our neighborhoods and our communities. There is a stat that says for, specifically for Black businesses who are starting up, the first 3 to 5 employees that they hire will be people of color. The majority of them. And when we look at gaps in things like the racial wealth gaps and the gaps in things like home ownership and equity ownership and savings and income, this idea that entrepreneurs of color are also really attacking those gaps by simply doing what they always do, not just providing jobs, but providing mentorship and providing apprenticeships. How many of you have worked either as a teen or as a young person for a small business? That could be a grocery store, that could be sweeping up hair at the salon, those types of things. Feel free to drop it in the chat if you've ever had a job with a small business owner or with an entrepreneur. Yes, Erica Bell, daycare. Absolutely. Mine was a summer camp for a daycare, actually. And yeah, the hair salons. Yes, I remember growing up, I went to a hair salon called Touch of Elegance in Elizabeth. And there were, young girls there just, sweeping up, doing small things, helping the community, right? But not even understanding the magnitude of what the small business was. And Karen, I love this, family-owned businesses. So in Jersey, we have so many family-owned businesses, which is such a beautiful thing. And 30 years is a blessing, Congratulations on 30 years. That's really exciting. So the workforce development piece is a place where entrepreneurs, their effect on the community is really to expand community. You see them connecting through mentorship, through apprenticeship, through internships. They're the first ones to sponsor the Little League. Entrepreneurs really do help create and expand community. And it's not just the typical workforce development with jobs. The other piece is the economic development, excuse me, the economic development that we all are very much aware of, right? It's taxes. They pay taxes, they provide income to other folks so they can pay taxes. And those are financial investments in the community. And lastly, I want to talk about the idea of entrepreneurs reclaiming community. So entrepreneurs reclaim communities in a really interesting way. So they reclaim property and community presence. I want to put you in the mind of downtowns that have lost a lot of shops. I want to put you in the mind of cities that have a lot of vacant lots. Entrepreneurs are usually the first folks in the community to start to see the potential and move on it. When there is a space in the neighborhood, a space in the city where everyone may talk about it, but entrepreneurs are usually the ones to first move on it. They're the ones that are starting a community garden. They're the ones that are collecting folks and artists together to put up a mural. They are the ones to start to build community presence. So reclaiming community and reclaiming property. Entrepreneurs, I've worked with a number of rural cities as well, and they talk about how there was a factory and then there were the jobs, and the factory left and the jobs left. And they also left the factory. So there are all of these spaces that are just open and seemingly unusable. But you'll find entrepreneurs doing everything from, holding a rave in a factory to creating pop-up shops and spaces for themselves and their fellow entrepreneurs and small business owners to really start to have a place of their own. So reclaiming property and community presence. They also become natural advocates for their communities. And I'm going to give you guys just a a colorful example of this. There was, I worked with a woman, Ethel Taylor, in Washington, D.C., and she started a doggy washerette. So in DC, not a lot of space to wash a dog, but it's a big dog city. So she started a place where you could bring your dog and wash your dog at this place, like a laundromat for your dog. You do it yourself, self-serve. But when the space she moved into was right between the high school, a charter school, and the high school. And she noticed that the kids were crossing a very busy street and there was just nothing there. No, crossing guards, no nothing. And the thought was that maybe because they were high school students, or maybe because it was a charter school, they hadn't connected yet. But she became this very natural advocate for getting a crossing guard in her community. And then later on, installing new street lighting when the city was beginning to start the process of buying new lighting packages, being the advocate to say, hey, we're a group of small business owners over here in this strip. When she moved into the space, she immediately got to know her neighbors, right? So this idea of advocating for the community is a very natural thing. And our entrepreneurs are really, I believe it was Karen's dad, 30-year deli. I mean, if something went on in that neighborhood, he knew about it, their family knew about it, and he was the first one to make a call. So these are the types of advocacy that come from our entrepreneurs. The other piece is around collective economics and like cooperative businesses. So entrepreneurs don't just build or reclaim the community for residents around, but also for themselves, and in a very efficient way. So if you have ever learned about, if you already are helping cooperatives, these are ways that folks really can come together and start their own businesses in a very concerted effort. Cooperatives are also a really great way to lower the barrier of financial entry for businesses, because it's groups of people coming together to own a business together. And some of the collective economics are really simple. I'm going to go back to my friend Ethel. And she got a new awning for her business when she moved in. And they're right next door to her, there were two other businesses, and their awnings, were just tattered, torn, worn. And sometimes you're so busy operating that those aren't the things that are on top of your mind to do the research, to figure out who's going to do it. So she also worked with them to help the entire strip of businesses get, brand new awnings. So it's one of those things that you really don't think about in the daily, but entrepreneurs have this very sincere effect on communities, because they are lifeblood and heart of the community. And then lastly is just the unity around small business owners sharing and connecting and building consensus within each other to really change a neighborhood. So this is a little photo montage of the doggy washerette. Here are the awnings. On the strip. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a darker street, and you can see new street lights down here. This is the K9000, kind of the heart of the business. This is where you wash your dog. And this is Ethel and Joy. Joy is the poodle that she adopted right after her, I say first year, or right before her first year started. And Joy is also a dog model. So Joy and Ethel also bring together opportunities for the dog community. So she opens up her shop for shelters to come and wash the pets if they need. She opens up the shop for the police dogs to come. And again, she had become a part of the community in a very, very serious way. So just wanted to share a little bit about the effect that entrepreneurs have on communities and why they're so important. You are business librarians or librarians interested in business, which is why you're here today. So I know you have this reverence, this appreciation, and that you value entrepreneurs and the power of entrepreneurship. So my next piece in our discussion is really, how do we support this? How do we build the ecosystems so that entrepreneurs like Ethel can flourish? And I want to be very clear too about who entrepreneurs are. We have this understanding that entrepreneurs are these 20-something, or maybe millennial, these young folks who don't like to wear formal clothes and speak in slang and hashtags, and is this very cool kind of kid world. Well, the average entrepreneur is a woman in New Jersey, is a woman of color, and is about 42 years old. So let's really, when we expand our thinking about who we're serving, we really want to think about, yes, we want to inspire the next generation, but we also want to support the entrepreneurs who are right now in the trenches. So let's talk about what those ecosystems look like. So transformational partnerships really take 4 different ecosystem partners, 4 ecosystem builders. There is philanthropy. This is where the funding resources come from. There are other entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs who have a doggy washerette, that's a type of entrepreneur who will engage in the community in new and different ways, advocate for the community in new and different ways. So entrepreneurs, even though the ecosystem really does feed them and support them, they are a vital part of transformational partnerships. The other are community organizers, community organizations. And I will talk about Rising Tide Capital and how we serve entrepreneurs. And then lastly, it's the government agencies. Now, the exciting thing about government agencies is that, budgets are basically standard. You know what you're working on. You're not running into too many surprises. Now, that day in, day out can also stagnate some of your creativity. But I'm gonna really share with you guys later on in the presentation how you can really utilize the ecosystem for your own creative work. So transformational partnerships that come from philanthropy. So philanthropy is a really interesting piece. So they fund projects, that's all the grant writing and all that great stuff. I say great sarcastically, but philanthropy provides funding that we may not have in any other way. With that said, philanthropy can also be a problem because the money will start to lead the priorities. So just a foundation or a philanthropic organization is not what we're looking for. We're looking for one that is transformational. And what that means is that they have community knowledge and connections. They're community-based. They are program officers who really know the communities that they give to. They know what the results look like, and they're not these distant benefactors, right? Who are just requesting lists of to-dos. The other thing about philanthropy is they need to be catalytic. They got to really get something going, you know? So their funding should be catalytic. So philanthropy that is first in, the first money in, the first check that an organization gets, that a program receives, comes from catalytic funders. They want to support new, proven solutions. They also activate and inspire their colleagues to take another look. So programs at libraries. I don't know how many foundations are really trying to give libraries what they need to be new or to do new or creative projects. But that first funder is the one who can then say, hey, let me invite you to this event for a grantee of mine. This is what it means to be catalytic, to really get something going. And these are the type of philanthropy partners we need. And then lastly, we need them to be flexible. So it is important to have boundaries, rules, and policies so things don't go awry. But at times, all of those rules can tangle you up. I mean, we all work for government agencies. We understand bureaucracy. We understand why. But sometimes it can tangle you up and get in the way. So we need philanthropic partners who are really providing resources that are flexible, and they understand the needs of the community partners and the best use for resources, because the community partners are on the ground. The libraries, the local librarians are on the ground. They know what they see every day. So really having these types of philanthropic partners, it's important for the ecosystem to actually be transformational. Now, I did say I was going to talk a little bit more about entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are vital to the ecosystem that actually feeds them and their businesses. And the idea of becoming a transformational entrepreneur, one that really does feed into their community and their neighborhood, is that you've got to come together with other entrepreneurs. And this is a pretty natural occurrence for entrepreneurs. And coming together means that they increase their capacity, their strength, their growth potential, their resiliency, and they're able to do more with the same. So not more with less, but if you can imagine, they can increase product offerings. For example, so I just moved into a new home, and, you know, lots of things to be fixed, a home from the 1960s. And I hired a contractor. My contractor is not a whole house painter. So of course, the plumbing is done, the bathroom is fixed, the new floors are down, but he hires someone else to do all of the painting, right? All the finished work there. So what that looks like is increased product offering because he works with someone else. His team works with another team, and that allows him to be full service. So really doing more with the same. You're able to also start businesses faster, grow them faster, and become more resilient because you have the shared knowledge of two businesses. So transformational entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs that are not afraid to connect and share with other entrepreneurs. It's all about collaboration, not competition. And then organizations. So this is where I'll talk a little bit about Rising Tide Capital. And Rising Tide Capital really epitomizes all of these characteristics of a transformational partnership organization. They are community-based. Community-based means that they don't just serve in the community, they know the community. Rising Tide Capital has been there been in Jersey City in the same neighborhood for 18 years. and just built and opened their first headquarters, right? So these things take time. These things take time. And being able to open up a headquarters in their what we refer to as home neighborhood that started as a storefront in a borrowed office space, all in that same neighborhood. But they are bridge builders. If you want to connect to Jersey City in any way, Jersey City entrepreneurs, the community-based approach is how you know this organization can be transformational. They are the ones that are social service organizations. They may be a dance studio. These are folks who just know, live, breathe the community. And they are innovative, right? They find new ways to serve and new solutions for community problems. Like I said, entrepreneurs are problem solvers, and transformational partner organizations are very entrepreneurial. They're also problem solvers. One thing that Rising Tide is doing, and this is part of the project that I work on, is that they have been extremely successful in Jersey City, starting up and throughout the state. So they are now sharing their model with folks in other cities, folks in other states, and they're currently in 14 other cities. So the idea of being innovative, of packaging what has been so successful for you, and then being able to share it in a way that says, hey, there are entrepreneurs in Wichita, Kansas that need to understand and see this. There are entrepreneurs in Dallas, Texas that need to understand and see this and have access to these resources. And then the other piece is organizations have to be collaborative. They really have to want to work together and work with other advocates, work with other partners and ecosystem builders, because we can't do this alone. We just can't, because we're not meant to do this work alone. And I'll just give you a few more pieces around Rising Tide. These are a few of our entrepreneurs. Rising Tide serves 80% BIPOC population, 80% women's population, 90% people of color. And we have a new class starting our Community Business Academy in September, in just another week or two. And we have over 200 entrepreneurs joining a 12-week class. Now, again, we serve about 1,000 entrepreneurs a year, because the Community Business Academy is just one element of Rising Tide Capital. But this is really a point of pride to me that we are serving all people. In our classes, we teach our 12-week Community Business Academy in English and Spanish. And when that breaks down to graduation, it's about a 50-50 split. So we really do reach into the community and intentionally connect to the entrepreneurs who have often been underestimated or overlooked. In general, we have a great business survival rate, about 80% beyond the 5-year mark. The average in the US is about 50. And in general, here's the economic development of it, right? Here are the economics. For every dollar that is invested into our programs, we generate about $3.80 in economic impact. And here are some stats. These are very important to me because the economics is what we kind of, this is what we share with the folks who are asking about investment, but the impact is really what's important. So the change in average business sales after 2 years with Rising Tide is 112%. Now, revenue does not always mean income, but change in sales is up 112% after 2 years, and 58% change in average household income. Now that is astronomical. I don't know how long you have been in your position at your place of employment, but after 2 years, can you imagine a 58% increase in your income? This is the power of entrepreneurship to really just decimate that racial wealth gap, to really address these community wealth issues. And then lastly, this stat that I think is important is there is a 54% reduction in use of public assistance. This kind of falls back into the economic development category, but I want to kind of turn it to the people, the person, the humanity of this number. Public assistance means that you are asking for assistance because you alone don't have what you need. To have a 54% in reduction is to have an increase in your own agency, in your own ability to really have the impact and the type of life that you want to live, the type of life that you want to give your children and your family. So these stats to me are really important, and they really speak to the work of entrepreneurship in our communities. So now let's talk about you guys, right? We talked about all our friends out here, philanthropy, organizations, entrepreneurs. Let's talk about government agencies and specifically libraries. Now, here's my full disclosure. My first business center that I managed in Washington, D.C. was inside the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library, downtown DC. And it was really exciting because I was one of those kids that grew up going to the library all the time. I was like, oh, great, they're moving the business center into the library. Can't wait. Now I was, I got dropped off after school, like did homework in the library, spent a lot of time, a little bit of a bookworm, all of that. So really looked forward to bringing this type of support to the main public library. At the time, there were lots of just city issues, right? Homelessness was probably the biggest one. And then in the evening, like that downtown neighborhood just going completely dark, right? No one was around. After the offices closed, it was just nothing else there. But the YMCA was there, and it was a residential or an overnight YMCA. So the thing about the library that I learned really is how entrepreneurs begin to interact with the library. And there are 3 areas that are really important for government agencies in general, but I want you guys to keep this in mind. And as you think about questions you want to dive into as I wrap up, there are 3 areas: policy, programs, and partnerships. These are vital for the startup of new businesses and the growth of existing businesses. In talking about policy, we want to think about equity and equitable policies. One of the most interesting examples of this are around book fines. So a study has been done about who gets these book fines, who brings their books back late, who has, the book fines piling up. And the studies show that it is often lower income residents. And the problem with book fines in the DC area at the time, I'm totally not going to tell you what year this was because, So, but at the time, once you have a book fines built up of a certain amount, you no longer could borrow books from the library. Seems like it makes sense, right? you haven't been responsible, you didn't pay your fine, you're not allowed to take out more books. But what that turned into is a very punitive way of policing resources and policing all the knowledge held in the library. Another policy that really stood out to me is that in the beginning, the business center in the library required you to have business registration, so a business license or a location. Now, I can tell you 60% of people of business owners, entrepreneurs in the world make the majority of their income from informal business, which means they don't have registration, they don't have licenses. So the idea that we had to prove who was a business owner, and we decided that the business owner had to have a business license or a location that we could point to. What about home-based businesses? Home-based businesses remain one of the startup locations. I mean, when we think about Microsoft, they were a home-based business starting in a garage, right? So when we start to instill policies, we need to have a really deep look at what the data will show. I was working with the National League of Cities yesterday, and we had a group from, I'm trying to remember. They were Rochester, Minnesota. They were not Rochester, New York. They were Rochester, Minnesota. And they talked about their business recovery grant and how they started their business recovery grant through the CARES Act money. The next round, council people started asking questions about where the money was going and who these businesses were. And then they decided no home-based businesses would receive this second round of money. So you couldn't be home-based, you had to be a Main Street business with a brick and mortar. What they saw was a drastic decline in businesses of color, a drastic decline in service-based businesses. All of those event planners making all those really cool balloon arches right now, all of those folks were hit by the pandemic and the closures, but now they didn't have access to resources because of an arbitrary policy that said home-based businesses aren't eligible. So when you start thinking about the policies that go into your business services or just the library in general, this is where equity starts to happen. And as we talk through that experience, the government representative was really he was really upset about it. And he was like, it was just so obvious that something as small as that. And I let him know, the reason why it's upsetting you is because you have institutionalized racism. It was a very clear race divide, and they created a policy that institutionalized racism and only gave money to, not because they meant to, but because it became a part of the institution and policy. So I really want to lean hard on the policy piece. And also throw out there our procurement opportunities. So library procurement practices, who do you buy from? I know many cities have goals to buy from entrepreneurs, people of color, women, veterans, etc. But even thinking through those small things. Now, the next piece is programs, right? So programs are all about access. There is no other conversation around programs, even bad programs, right? We need, or programs, not bad programs, programs that didn't have the intended outcome. I'll say that. But we need programs that really focus in on access, and libraries are such a pivotal piece. So what I discovered in the main library is that use of approachable local neighborhood branches was the best partnership we had ever had. So it wasn't just the big main public library downtown, it was the smaller neighborhood or libraries where folks knew them. They felt like they were their libraries. So libraries and schools are the two government institutions that are the most approachable. I would also say the post office, but that's a little bit, it's not really local. But schools and libraries, people are not, people are not running to the front doors of government agencies. And for many of our immigrant populations, our new American populations, and for our existing populations, there's not a lot of trust in the government. The interesting thing about libraries is people will show up at the library before they ever show up at any other public government building. So that location piece is important. And then customers, programs that expose entrepreneurs to new customers, introduce entrepreneurs to new markets. These are ways that that libraries can really help. So library-sponsored vendor markets, pop-up spaces, be it the parking lot or the main, the main area. And it could be pop-up spaces, but it could also be opportunity to host procurement fairs. So if the library doesn't know who can sell them paper and be without going to Staples, maybe there is a supply company in the area. You can hold procurement fairs just for yourself the same way you hold hiring fairs. So that's another program that really helps, programs that focus on introducing new customers to entrepreneurs. And then programs that have the right timing. When I first started at the Women's Business Center, we started classes at 6 o'clock because I knew that daycare pickup was like 4:45. People needed to get their kids, they needed to get home from school, from work or school. And what happened for every one of my 6 o'clock start times, everyone started walking in at 6:30. Now, I don't, 6:30, like a very clear 30 minutes late. And after 10 minutes, you start to feel like, are people even coming? 30 minutes late. It happened the first week, the second week, the third week. And I finally asked, I said, I noticed that folks are coming in around 6:30. Is that a better time? And I got an answer that I wasn't even ready for. They said, oh no, we're here at 6, but we stay in our cars because, it's rush hour and rush hour parking isn't lifted until 6:30. So that's when everyone gets out. Things like access has to really be thoughtful. If you want people to show up, does the bus come there? Can you drive there? Is there parking? Do you have to pay for parking? And when are the parking meters active? Or when are the rush hour hours active? So programs really just thinking about access through locations, placing programs within the neighborhoods, access to new customers and opportunities to new markets, and then just general timing. Those are things that stand out for programming around entrepreneurship. And then lastly, I want to talk about partnership. So not every librarian is a business librarian. Not every business librarian has ever had a business or has a business degree, but I'll say you are that important because libraries hold and librarians hold they're the key to the knowledge. It's like the vessels that have the information. So you may not have read, I remember growing up and falling in love with Madeleine L'Engle books. So like A Wrinkle in Time, A Wind in the Door, all of that. My librarian was the one that introduced me. She said, what type of things do you like? What type of, topics do you like? She understood and learned that I liked fantasy or sci-fi. So that's when I was first recommended, and A Wrinkle in Time. And from there, she was able to refer me to other books and books that she hadn't read. And that's what partnerships are. For you guys now, you don't need to have started a business, know much about business at all, but you do need to know where the connections are. So who are the training folks? Who can give business education to entrepreneurs? We're talking about Rising Tide. Thank you, Andrea dropped the link in the chat. And we provide training and education for entrepreneurs. Who provides funding, lending? So you don't need to know everything about small business marketing, entrepreneurship, online services, online or e-commerce services. But you do need to know who the partners are who can focus in on that, who can really serve the entrepreneurs. So as I close and give a little space for questions, I have a little bit of a call to action. I never go anywhere without asking for what I want. And these are some things that I want from the audience today. I don't just want to impart information. I want you to be like transformational entrepreneurs. I don't want you to just see the problem. I want you to do something about it. So today, I would love for you all to make one transformational connection today. What that means is grabbing someone in the chat who is from a neighborhood. When we first started, we talked about where we were from. So if there's someone from Maplewood and you currently live in Edison, but you grew up in Maplewood, make a connection, right? If you are in a conversation with the next presenters and someone says something interesting, scroll down that chat, direct message them, make a transformational connection today. And if there are any philanthropic folks, honestly, I know that this audience is not really for funders, but when you are talking about funders and your programs, look for folks who are going to support your new ideas and really bring their friends, right? So that you don't just come by yourself, come with a check and come with your friends who can bring a check, right? Those are the folks that we're looking for. And then I would love for you guys as the New Jersey libraries to really reach out to other advocates, other ecosystem developers, other builders, and ask, how is it going? And how can I help? That is a groundbreaking question, specifically at work. We are all overwhelmed. We all have so much on us, personally, professionally. How can I help? Is a question that really will, one, give a pause because people aren't normally trying to take on extra work. But the idea is that the work will be lighter, the load will be lighter if we lift it together. So asking, how can I help, is what I want you to do. Is that's once you make those transformational connections, ask how you can help. How can you work together? How can you lift the load together? And then the idea for entrepreneurs, and I always speak as if I'm talking to entrepreneurs because there are folks in our audience as we speak who have a side hustle, who do a little something for a little extra money. Maybe it's a passion project. Those entrepreneurs are always in your midst. So what I say is keep your hands open. This is a saying that comes from my mother. She is also a Jersey girl, born and raised in Edison. And she always says, you can't receive anything with your hands closed. So keep your hands open. And this open posture is also the posture of giving. So always be ready to give to your ecosystem and find new ways to grow. So I'll stop right here and say thank you again. And Andrea, we can take a few questions.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. This was really not just insightful and inspiring, but so practical. And I love the advice that you have about reassessing policies, programs, and partnerships. And I feel as though it almost looks like I really did this on purpose, but everything is like leading into each other like so perfectly. So thank you.
You're just good, Andrea. You're just good. It's okay.
So I did prepare a few questions. I want to remind everyone, you can type your questions in the chat. I do see a practical one coming up, but I'll get to that in a second. Unfortunately, you seem to have gotten to all my questions, so I'm going to sort of rephrase one of them.
Sure.
So how can libraries encourage entrepreneurship? And I think this is a little bit more about who are the entrepreneurs and how can we reach them? Because I have heard some stories from libraries saying, you know, we did the program and nobody came, or we bought the database and nobody used it. So how do you reach out and how do you find those entrepreneurs and bring them into the library?
So I mentioned doing work with the National League of Cities, and what it is are government representatives that support entrepreneurs. So similarly, they may be part of their economic development agency or their small business, whatever office, and they say the same thing. So the interesting thing is I talked about those transformational organizations. Librarians are not here to be kind of like the outreach specialists, like the community engagement specialists. So you can be great at pulling programs together, but how do you engage folks to get them there? I would say that that's where you need your transformational partnership. So if you are reaching out to young people, you'd automatically go to the schools, right? But are you going to, again, that dance school there? You know, I grew up dancing, which is why it's always a example for me. And I went to Metuchen Dance Center. And Metuchen Dance Center has been there forever. They used to be in like a VFW hall when I was there for 15 years. They now are like on Main Street in Metuchen. And they are a very pivotal piece of the community. So when you are thinking about how do you bring other entrepreneurs or other people into your programs, you want to find the bridges, those organizations that are already seeing and connecting to those people. And you know it's a bridge organization because they're the ones that the community just word of mouth talks about. So they're the ones who, you know, the churches that do the book bag giveaway. They are the social service nonprofit that provides, what do you call it? Like healthcare checkups. They're the group that gives out bike helmets. You want to find the partners that connect to the population. That's the bridge. The partners that are already working and are trusted by that population. Because then when they say, hey, this is an event I want you to go to, this is an event that I think is great for you, for your kids, for your family, you should tell a friend. Those are the folks that you should work with in putting together the programs because they already have the people. mostly they don't have the space, they don't have the, the staff, they don't have all of the other things that libraries already have. So that's how you make it transformational. That's how you make it impactful. You don't have to do any more lifting. There's no version of social media that's going to make it happen. There's no special colors on the flyer, none of that. You really have to tap in to your transformational organizations, those bridge partners who already know the people.
That is great advice. And I see Erica is pointing out that at a Union Public Library, I think, Union Public Library, that they connected with organizations. So if anyone has examples of bridge organizations that they've worked with, you can put those in the chat as well.
Yes.
And there is a question about Rising Tide offering basic intro classes for library patrons. So are there any opportunities to work with Rising Tide?
So, strategic partnerships. So I'm here. We don't have a general kind of, so Rising Tide, there are a couple things that work when you're doing entrepreneur education. One is cohorts, and two is extended training. So we don't do like a 1 hour intro to business. It's more something that is that we leave for other folks to do, because the impact doesn't come from that, right? So you spend your time doing the thing that has the most impact. It's why we do 12 weeks, because that's where you start to see impact. It's also where, it's not just financial capital that our entrepreneurs who are underserved, they don't just need money. They also need social capital. They don't know anyone, right? Like they don't know if you're packaging something, they're just going to go on Amazon, right? Like they just don't have the connections. And cohorts also build small business connections amongst each other. So we don't do one-offs. However, we can talk about what that might look like. And, I'll just put a side note in there that our Community Business Academy starts in the fall and in the spring. So if there are entrepreneurs already doing something in the audience, please take a look. And I do know, Ashley, I see that you guys have, Raritan as well. Ocean County, yes, fine free. All of you guys are talking about being fine free. That makes me really proud, actually. But I do know, for example, that Camden is on the Rising Tide list. They want to do a little bit more work in South Jersey. But again, location, timing, all of those things. So I want to say reach out, and definitely feel free to send me an email, and I can funnel you to wherever, to whoever in our New Jersey outreach world you can talk to.
Great, thank you. And there's a question about if Rising Tide in that 12-week course is recommending that participants use the library.
So we, in some cases we do, specifically around things like business databases, those types of things. But what I will say, in my experience in actually running a business center in the library and outside of the library, it is just, it just changed worlds when the librarian came to us and was able to like walk us through the database, like in one of our 10-week sessions. So being the guest speaker, we used to also have, and I'm sure you guys do this, but library labs where we would go and folks would have their specifically for startup folks, they would have like the list of things they really need to know, like what's this pricing around this, or is there a gap in service around this area that I'm trying to step into? That's the type of thing that I think is helpful. So the idea of being a guest speaker in classes like Rising Tide, I see SCORE is coming up, in SCORE and WCEC. I'm not sure who that is. I don't know if that's Erica, I don't know who WCEC is, but I do know SCORE because SCORE Women's Business Centers and Small Business Development Centers are SBA resource partners. Just being able to connect with SCORE and offer your services, to be that guest speaker, to demo the database, you'll start to get more traction on the resources that you already have, because folks do not know, absolutely have no idea how advanced our libraries have gotten. I mean, it's like you guys are in your own like little innovation bubble. I'm talking about Find Free, and you guys are like, yeah, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we've been there, done that. So the public and the organizations around you have no idea how advanced you are. And I would really say that offering to be a part of one of those cohorts as a guest speaker, I think would be phenomenal. And even in reaching out to Rising Tide and wherever the locations are for the cohorts that are starting in September, that might be a natural fit as well.
All right, so we have time for one more quick question and answer. So after the 12-week program, what are the initiatives to keep the cohort together longer term?
I'll answer that, but I am checking into the chat, and I see that we're talking about a Women's Business Center. These are all of these places, the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship. Thank you, Erica. Workforce Development Centers, I just want to really shout them out. Yes, and our cohorts are throughout New Jersey, Joan. And you can see where they are on our websites. And feel free to send me an email. So the last question is, after the 12 weeks, what do we do to keep the cohort together on longer terms? So we don't try to keep the cohort together, but we try to stay connected to the entrepreneur. Rising Tide offers 3 main services. It's the Community Business Academy. That's usually where folks come into the door. After that is what's called Business Acceleration Services. And that is where the coaching and counseling happens. So we don't just jump into coaching and counseling right away. We kind of have an assessment piece. But if you've gone through the Community Business Academy, you then start coaching in 90-day sprints. So coaching is time bound. And in that 90 days, you have a goal for your business that you want to reach, and you work with your coach on that goal. And then normally folks go and, start businessing. They really start their activities. They start their changes. They start doing the things that they plan to do in improving the areas of their business. So then they'll come back to their coaches when they have the next thing. So maybe they want to hire, maybe they want to offer a new service, maybe they need to fire, maybe they need to make a pivot. So right after that Community Business Academy, you've established a foundational language and understanding. And then there is the coaching and counseling after that. The third piece is the access to capital, because some folks need money and others don't. So your coach will prepare you to access that funding. So whether it's applying for a grant, applying for a loan at a bank, or a micro loan at a smaller organization, those are the 3 pieces of Rising Tide. That's the full model. So it's the Community Business Academy, the coaching and counseling, and then the access to capital. And believe it or not, our Community Business Academy is taught by entrepreneurs. So what we often have after 18 years is we have our entrepreneurs who went through the Community Business Academy now teaching the Community Business Academy because we hire them on contracts.
I love that. I mean, that I think is, that just really shows the strength of the program and the connection that they feel to the program, that they would come back and teach it. So that is wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's awesome. We also have a number of staff folks who were introduced to Rising Tide 10 years ago and now work here. Like, it's really great.
That's great. Yeah.
And Andrea, I see a question about charging for classes.
Mhm.
So I do want to answer that. Yes, there is a charge for classes, but the charge is not, so the 12-week class, like the value is about $4,000. We don't charge $4,000. We actually just charge for the resource material is what we charge for, because we receive grants. So we can bring that cost down, and the grants are often on a sliding scale, depending on your income. Some folks pay $50 for 12 weeks, and some folks will pay $200 for 12 weeks. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And I hate that we have to bring this to a close because I feel like I could listen to you all day. But thank you. There's so many messages in the chat saying thank you. And Samira has been kind enough to share her contact information. So if you have more specific questions about Rising Tide Capital and their initiatives, you can reach out to her. So thank you again for joining us. And, you know, we will be in touch. It's great to connect with you and know that you are a supporter of libraries as well.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much. I really appreciate being invited and, you know, again, being welcomed back home through the New Jersey libraries.
Good luck with getting settled in Somerset.
I will. Thank you.